to discussion. They are C3, C4, C7, C10, and also add C8. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
A second.
I have a motion by Ms. Graham, second by Ms. McKinnon. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. We don't have recognitions and awards listed on the agenda, but I did get a card, and I think it would be appropriate to put this here as a recognition. Teresa Dixon.
Is she on? Is the mic on?
No, we don't. Just a minute.
Thank you. My name is Teresa Dixon. I'm the Vice President of CESPA, Clay Educational Support Professionals Association. And last month, our President, Kelly Griffiths, the President of CESPA, challenged Mr. Van Zant, the members of the current school board, as well as Ms. Condon, Ms. Gilhousen, and Mr. Lay, to work a day as a support employee. I'm here tonight on behalf of our President, who was out of town and couldn't be here. And the purpose was to report to you the results of the challenge. First, I'd like to express why we felt this challenge was important. As a school board member and district level administrator, you often make decisions regarding the employees you oversee. Oftentimes, the consequence of these decisions may produce negative effects for the employee as well as the students that they serve. It's important for any supervisor to know the duties of their employees. It's also important to know the needs and concerns of the community, the needs and concerns of the students, and those of the parents and the teachers. But you cannot truly know these things without taking the time to be actively involved and engaged, without rolling up your sleeves and joining in, without sitting down and not talking, but listening. You don't get a full understanding just from reading a report or looking at a graph. Now, I do realize that some who were unable to meet this challenge have full-time jobs in other areas, which certainly prevented them from being able to fulfill the task. That's concerning to me that their time is so limited, but I would like to re-extend the invitation and ask them to please come out and work a day as a support employee. To those of you that did complete the challenge, thank you. It meant a great deal to the employees to see that you care enough about our schools, our students, and our employees to step out of your comfort zone and to take on a task that may have seemed alien to you. We hope sincerely that you grew from the experience and that you gained some insight that you did not previously have. So far, 3 of the 9 people challenged did fulfill the quest, and I'd like to present to them certificates of appreciation. And they go to Tina Bullock for serving as a teacher assistant at Keystone Elementary School, Carol Studdard for serving as a teacher assistant at Ridgeview High School, and Janet Karakis for serving as a bus monitor through the Middleburg bus compound. Thank you. And I have certificates, if I could present them.
I want to say a couple things about that. Last week I went to Ridgeview High School as an ESE assistant, and there was one teacher and one aide in the class, and then at different times during the day, there was a sign language person who came in with one student, and then I went to an adaptive PE class with my student who was in a wheelchair, but I made some friends. The kids were wonderful. There were 2 assistants in the class, and one teacher, but it showed me something that I would have never known had I not been there and walked the walk and seen it. And the adaptive PE teacher was wonderful, and the aides were so caring, and the kids in that class, there were several different exceptionalities, and you really got to see what the kids go through each day, and it was such a positive thing. I hope to see those kids again. I feel like I made some new friends that day. Did y'all want to say anything?
I do. I would like to say something. I had the pleasure of being a bus monitor yesterday morning, and our bus drivers arrive at the compound at 5 a.m. or 5:15. It's very early. Mr. Warrenberg was a great help in setting me up with the team, and honestly, they gave me the cream puff route. Bus drivers said, if you really want to know what it's like and walk a day in our shoes, ride the big bus. But I was on an ESE bus, and I was so incredibly impressed with the care that our staff gives to these children and the patience that they have. It was remarkable. And every child that got on, you could tell they have a good relationship with their driver and their aide. They said good morning, they said hello if they could speak it. And the aide would say to them, how was your weekend, how was mom, what'd you do? And you can see that they were engaged in these children's lives. Each school that we went to, we did Ridgeview High School, we transported kids to Ridgeview Elementary and Lake Asbury Junior, and at each school there was an aide there to meet each one of those children and address them in a warm, welcoming manner and help them. The patience that I saw displayed to our students and our children was remarkable. And I really have so much more respect. I mean, I've had an enormous amount of respect for all our support employees, but now that I see what they really go through in an average day. We had one student that's in a wheelchair. I didn't even know how to hook a wheelchair up and lock it into a safe, secure spot in the bus, and they have a great routine, and they're very quick the way they do it. But the students never felt like they were being maneuvered quickly, and everything went so smoothly. And the nurse that accompanied this student was just as professional as could be. I was so incredibly impressed. So I did tell Mr. Warrenberg I will come back and get the tour of the rest of the bus depot, and I am going to be brave enough to ride the big bus one day. So thank you very much for the challenge. It meant a lot, and it opened my eyes a lot to what our bus drivers deal with. Thank you.
I got to go to Keystone Elementary School and shadow a teacher assistant. It was a TMH, PMH classroom. Ms. Corey had told me that it was a great classroom, and she was absolutely right. They were phenomenal with those students. I had emailed the teacher ahead of time and said, or actually the aide, and said, okay, what do I need to do in preparation? She said, wear comfortable shoes, comfortable clothes, and bring your lunch. We only get 28 minutes. So I think that was a little, remember, we only get this amount of time, but they were phenomenal with our students. Again, by the time every student arrived on the bus, I had a little synopsis of each child. This one's a hugger, this one does this one does that. They knew those kids so well, and not only did they have the duties of the students, but they also had bus duty and other responsibilities, and I was very impressed. And anybody who gets an opportunity to go into our classroom and see the phenomenal job that our support staff does, and also the teacher that was in that classroom, needs to give themselves that opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Appreciate it.
Mrs. Studdard, I forgot to mention, my driver was Teresa, and her aide was Sheila, and they were wonderful. I just want to shout out to them. Thank you.
Very good. Okay. We had one scheduled citizens request, but due to a death in the family, we will not have a speaker tonight. Next is superintendent update. Oh, and this is the last call for green cards. Anyone else want to turn in a green card? Okay, Mr. Van Zant?
Madam Chair, board members, I don't have anything earth-shattering for you tonight. We ended up our first 9 weeks last week. Had a great health fair here at Fleming Allen High School. It was well put together and very well participated in. Miss Gann is not here tonight, but her crew just does a phenomenal job with that, and it helps people catch things. I'd like to just tell you a little story while we're talking about some things. I got a call from a principal last night. Had a first grader in one of our elementary schools on Monday that was walking and just didn't look right, kind of carrying her body a little bit, dragging a foot. Now, first grade little girl. So they call the mom, transport the child to a local medical facility, and they think she's bruised her knee. Child lays out of school Tuesday, not feeling well. Child comes back Wednesday. Nurse calls the principal, says, I need to transport this child. Transported the child to Wilson's downtown. Turned out the child had had a stroke a week or two ago. Had a mass on her brain and fluid in it. So our nurse, by paying very close attention, not taking the first medical synopsis that she saw, literally has saved a child's life this week. So I haven't got a report post-surgery. The child was having surgery to drain that fluid this afternoon. But those are the kind of people that work for us in and out of this district and in our 41 schools every day. And just, I invite you to go through any of our high schools and look at the academy redesign, maybe attend professional learning community. For those of you that don't know, our high schools, each of our 9th graders entered an academy when school started this year, learning all their core subjects plus a career tech ed, whether it be in aerospace or a medical or a carpentry or automotive. But they're learning their core curriculum and their extracurricular or elective classes around a theme-based learning initiative, and that's just going to continue to take our kids farther down the road and do what we need to do. So a lot of great things going on, nothing specific for this week, so that's all I have.
Okay. Next is D2, amend the contract for secretarial services provided by Sabrina Gaston to the school board attorney. This was Ms. Carrick's item. I do have a card on this. Amber Shepherd. Is this the one you wanted to address? Okay.
Amber Shepherd, 301 Old Jennings Road, Orange Park, Florida. A few years ago, there was, and actually over the past few years, there's been quite a bit of conversation here in the boardroom and amongst citizens about the concern of Ms. Gaston's contract and how there really is no appropriate means of evaluation, and that a lot of citizens feel that this is really a non-compete, no-show contract, and that we really feel that it's improper that the employee is directly supervised by her spouse. And we really would like the board to consider this and to encourage the attorney to find another assistant. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carrickas?
Thank you. I placed this on the agenda just for more of a housekeeping reason. Would like the contract to read to go through the end of the calendar year. You know, our school calendar is July 1 through June 30th, and it seems odd to me that this just comes up in November. So I thought, well, let's go with the traditional calendar year and move her contract to the 31st of December. There's no actual reason for it, and that's what I did. So I will move approval.
So your reasoning is so it'll follow just the contract
Just
year?
the contract year. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I second that.
Mhm.
Did you make you made the all right, there was a motion by Ms. Carrickas, second by Ms. Bullock. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. The next item, D3, Discuss financial impact of an appointed superintendent and approve to motion postpone the appointment process until the 2016 general election. Should the ballot initiative pass in November 2014 general election, Ms. McKinnon, and this is your item, but I do have some cards on this.
Okay.
First, Keith Nichols.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to address this before we got started because I have an idea where this may be going. It's about the financial impact of going to an appointed school board superintendent and the fact that it would probably be a little more expensive to have an appointed school board attendant as compared to an elected school board attendant. That has already been brought up. We've already made mention of that, and I know I've said that up here 2 or 3 times that, yes, the salary would be a little bit more, but the thing that we have to look at is that with the salary aside, yes, it's going to cost a little bit more, but if we bring in a specialized person, we can mitigate that salary in contract, and by having our school actually get turned around to where we start reversing the decline that we've been seeing over the last decade and a half, and coming back. There was a recent, and I can't remember exactly where I saw it, but it was from the Labor Department, that showed where if you can raise the graduation rate by 1 percentage point and maintain that 1 percentage point for a period of 20 years, at that end of 20 years, you're going to add over $1 billion of economic stimulus to your community. And I don't know about you, but I think $1 billion coming into our community and helping our tax base would really be a significant advantage to us. So when you look at this and you're looking at the cost, understand something. Your school district is an asset to the county. It's a really vital asset, and the better you can prepare your school students for their future, the better you can prepare your county for the future, the more you're going to have to be able to spend because your tax base is going to improve. And I'm guarantee you Mr. Copeland will probably sit over here and agree with me on that point that, you know, your school district, if you get your school district going back in the right direction, shifting the slide, that the cost of the additional cost that the appointed superintendent is going to bring is not going to be that significant. Thank you.
Can I ask Mr. Nichols a question? Could I ask you a question, sir? Do you know what our graduation rate was this past year in Clay County?
No, sir, I do not right offhand. I've looked it up before, but I can't remember what it was. I know it was fairly high. It was one of the highest in the state.
It came up 7% from the previous year.
I understand that, sir. And we're doing...
county with a different governance model that came up that much? I haven't looked.
I don't know, sir. To be honest with you, I just cited that because that was something that I heard on NPR, and it struck me as being an interesting fact. And I just, you know, I've seen the decline, and as I said before, you know, I never did say that the decline was a result of you. I don't think it is. I think it's a result of what's been going on. I think it's just a result of the fact that we're now at 35,000 students. And we need, it's nothing against you. I think we just need to have professional management so that we can, you know, we can tailor it. Right now we're having financial problems. It would be nice to be able to say, okay, we're going to look for an appointed superintendent whose background is bringing in finances, to straightening out finances. And at the end of the 4-year period of time, when they've got the finances straightened out, okay, well now we can go out, we can find a school board superintendent who's going to be able to go in and address curriculum and to be able to Spotify it instead of, and like I said, nothing personal against you, to be able to spot what our district actually needs and tailor the person to that need and address that need one at a time to get us back on track. I think that's the strongest way of doing it.
I don't take it personally. I just wanted you and everybody in this room to know that due to our fine teachers and administrators and everybody that has a part of a kid's learning gains, that our graduation rate actually did rise 7% this last year, and that in the last 2 years we've presented balanced budgets to the school board from this staff, which is the first time in probably 6 or 7 years that's happened. So I don't want
well, the whole thing is, sir, is can we maintain that?
I just wanted to clarify what is actually the history.
Yeah, why don't we not get into this right now? These
Yes,
are the
ma'am.
3-minute speakers.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nichols. Elaine Weistock.
Elaine Weistock, and you have my information on file. Dr. Phil has a famous one-liner. How is that working for you? He delivers this zinger after he hears from folks who repeatedly do things that don't work and in some cases are counterproductive. We are having a Dr. Phil moment now in Clay County. We have elected a superintendent of schools under whose management our school district has been downgraded from an A to a B, and during whose management the relative standing of our school districts has plummeted from about 13th to 19th. How is an elected superintendent of schools working for us? Not so good. The appointment of a superintendent of schools is not a radical effort to disenfranchise the voters of Clay County. On the contrary, the appointment elevates the superintendent's office to a professional level with selection criteria based on best practices and citizen input. Furthermore, Clay County is the exception when it comes to selecting its superintendent of schools. 47 of 50 states appoint school superintendents. Consider, please, that it is Mississippi and Alabama that also elect their superintendents. And most school districts in Florida with demographics similar to those of Clay County also appoint their school superintendents. Apparently, the overwhelming majority of Americans have decided that public schools systems are best managed by professionals rather than left in the hands of those who win a popularity contest and meet no standards of competence. The Clay County educational system needs improvement now, not in 2016. It needs a qualified administrator to deal with the worst budget shortfall in over a decade. It needs to develop a curriculum that keeps pace with our internationally interconnected societies. Only one foreign language is taught in Clay County high schools. And with the high-tech environment that students need to compete in the workplace, it needs teachers trained to face the challenges of new educational programs such as Common Core. If I needed someone to provide professional services, be it legal advice, medical care, financial management, I would not want my neighbors to vote on the provider unless I had assurance that the provider was qualified, competent, and experienced. I want no less for the children of Clay County who deserve a first-class education. Besides the future of our children, the well-being, financial and otherwise, of our community is at stake in next month's election. The reputation of our school system is linked to the health of our economy. Let's do the right thing, set professional standards, and appoint a Clay County superintendent of schools.
Okay, that's all the cards. Ms. McKinnon, it's your item.
Okay, the reason why I did put this on the agenda is because, there has been there's a couple of items coming up next where we had advertised for the job description and the process for an appointed superintendent. And I think that's all fine and well. However, at no time has this board discussed what the financial impact would be. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to actually let the data speak for itself. And so, if I may, Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and take the podium. I have a presentation that I would like to share, and I've provided you guys a couple of sheets, primarily because what I'm going to share, this will probably be hard to see on the screen. So let me go ahead and take a walk down here first. You go ahead and pull that up for me. Okay, presentation mode. Okay. So really for the benefit of everybody, I put together this cost-benefit analysis, and my approach in doing this is the same approach that I would take with my professional career. Anytime that we are going to look at making an investment in something, we always want to make sure that there's going to be a return on that investment. And so I took the same approach here. If you can go to the next slide. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to talk about the comparison assumptions. I'm going to talk about the actual cost analysis, which you guys have a sheet of there. I'll talk about the summary of the cost differentials, the impact of the budget, ask the question if there is a return on the investment, and then a closing summary. Yeah. Oh, here we go right here. Okay, so these are my assumptions right here. First of all, we all know that there's 67 districts in the state of Florida, and we know that 41 of those districts still elect their superintendents, while 26 appoint. There are 7 districts with appointed superintendents that are closest in size to Clay County in terms of their population and their student size. So these were the 7 districts that I chose to compare Clay County to. You can see there's St. John's, Alachua, Hernando, Osceola, Indian River, St. Lucie, and Charlotte. And in the backup tonight, I provided the actual superintendent contracts for all of those counties, with the exception of Charlotte. I had made the public records request to all of these districts, and the only one that I did not get back was Charlotte. So for the purpose of the backup, there's really only 6 contracts there. Okay, the reason why I think these 7 are important is because when we go to start soliciting, if we go to start soliciting for an appointed superintendent, these are really the types of contracts that I think that we're going to have to compete with. So that's why these 7 were chosen. Okay, like I said, this is an eye chart, and I know most of you can't see it, but there is a copy of this that was provided in the back of the room. So what I'm going to do is I have a copy in front of me, and I'm just going to kind of walk through this, okay? And I'm going to summarize it pretty much. Across the top, you see the 7 different districts. You have Clay County, and then St. John's, and all the other ones are to the right of there. Down the left-hand side, we kind of have, there's really 4 categories there. You have, in the top, you have district comparisons, and then we have the salary and benefits, professional development, we have miscellaneous expenses, and then we have the vacation and sick leave. And then down at the bottom, we have those one-time costs, and those are the costs that I categorized as the upfront cost, which are costs such as search fees and any administrative types of fees, travel expenses and things to bring an appointed superintendent in for interviews. And then as well as the back-end fees, which are buyouts, you know, if the superintendent resigns or he has to be fired or let go or something like that, there's significant costs when you let an appointed superintendent go. So starting at the top, I just want to note in terms of the district comparison, so you see the population sizes there. Clay County's population size is kind of right in the middle, and I took the 3 to the lower end and 3 to the upper end. Okay? You can also see the number of students there. And the interesting thing to note is the district rankings. You'll notice that St. Johns County is the only A-rated district there. Clay is the B-rated district, and all the others are C-rated districts. Just to note, the superintendent's names that are in red font, and you guys probably can't see that because I think you have black and white copies, but if you look up here, that would be Dr. Joyner, Dr. Robert Owens, Dr. Lori Romano, Dr. Fran Adams, and Dr. Doug Whitaker. These are all superintendents that are very highly qualified and all contain doctorate degrees.
Could I ask a question?
You know what, I'd like to finish first, and then we'll open it up for discussion, okay? And then you can see the appointed electorate, and then the contract term. So while half of these were 3-year terms, the other half were 2-year terms, and again, I did not get the information for Dr. Whitaker, and so the only really thing that I put there was just what I knew his salary was, and that was really the only comparison made there. So you can see the salaries, and this is the annual base salary going across. And what I noted on the annual base salary for Indian River and Charlotte is that these particular counties, their annual base salary is higher even though they have a smaller population and half the students of Clay County. So that doesn't really correlate to anything. Okay, going on down to salaries and benefits and the professional development, all of those first 4 or 5 lines, a lot of the contracts didn't specify actual dollar amounts, but it did indicate that they do get these benefits. And so what I did was I just put yes or no, and for the most part, all of these superintendents get the same types of life insurance, annual disability, contribution to health insurance, FRS, and tax-sheltered annuity plans, with the exception of, if you look at the top, the annual physical examination required, all appointed superintendents their contracts are required to be able to pass an annual physical examination. And while there's no cost list here, I just want you guys to keep in mind that there are costs associated with them. I just didn't include them here because I didn't know what they were. Moving on down, there's a special qualification salary that some superintendents get and some don't. Our superintendent gets it. It's $2,000 across the board. There's a CEO Leadership Development Certificate that if you have that, that range can be anywhere from $2,500 to $7,500. So for the purpose of averaging, I chose the middle. And then a performance bonus. Most of all of the contracts that I looked at, the superintendents get some kind of a performance bonus, but it's typically equated with that usually the same as the administrators. That's what it said. And since I didn't know what those were, I just indicated that it's the same as the administrators. When we get down to miscellaneous expenses, I think the biggest one here is this organizational membership fee and conference meetings. This would include the things like your cost for the Florida Association of District Superintendents and other organizations that superintendents belongs to. There was a number of them in some of these contracts that the school board is required to pay these costs, like AASA, FASA, ASCD, and there's several others. I do know, and I checked with our district, that the only membership that our district pays for is for the the Florida Association of District Superintendents, and that's an annual fee. And then they also pay for the FSBA one, which is for the school board members. Civic and community activities. Some of these contracts, they have stipends, and that's pretty much for civic and community activities. Not all of them did, but some of them did, and that averaged anywhere around $2,500 a year. Also, several of these superintendents were given annual automobile supplements. And some of them were $650 a month, some of them were $750 a month, and so forth. And so when you annualize that out, the average comes out to about $7,200 per year. Moving on down to vacation and sick leave. This was the only reason why I put this in here. Everybody gets vacation and sick leave, whether you're appointed or whether you're elected. But the reason why I put it in here and tried to capture the actual number of days that they earn is because when you get down to those one-time costs and you look at this thing called terminal pay is dependent upon how much accrued vacation and sick leave that you get. And so I indicated it in here just to show for that cause. Okay? So when you look at the total estimated annual costs, it includes all those figures going on down, and then you scroll over to the right. When you look at the average annual base salary for an appointed superintendent, it's about $156,000, which is about 21% higher than our elected. When you add in all the other extra benefits, that $156,000 then goes up to about $188,000. That's a pretty conservative number considering that some of these other things weren't listed here. Okay? That's 26% higher than what our elected superintendent gets. And then lastly, I really kind of want to talk about these one-time costs. Okay? One-time costs, this is what I call the upfront costs or the buyout costs. This includes search firms and any other additional cost. Now, of the contracts that I looked at, most of them, at one time or another, they were using search firms, but I think they figured out that using the FSBA was a little cheaper. And so the costs that you see there, most of them are FSBA. But you can also see, and I'll just point out, St. Lucie County, their cost was $24,000 the last time they did a search. And it was primarily because they did use the FSBA, but then I think they said they didn't want to use them again, and they went with a private search firm. So while these costs you see here really reflect mostly FSBA costs, and all of the other associated costs that kind of go in there, if you use a private search firm, it's going to be much more expensive. Then you have the next item, which is to terminate without cause. And this is, a lot of these contracts have this stipulation in there that if you terminate them without cause, and you can do that, but you're going to have to pay a significant buyout, which for most of them, it was 20 weeks of their annual salary, so 20 weeks. Let's see, so that averaged out to about $82,000 if you just took the average there. That's just an average figure. And then, of course, you factor in the terminal pay, which is you take your annualized vacation, or excuse me, your accrued vacation and sick leave, and you put that into a daily figure, and it's based on a 250 workday. And some of these are pretty significant, anywhere from $16,000 to $39,000. And I know that according to Florida statute, the maximum that you can accrue for this purpose is 60 days. So if you could imagine paying 60 days of vacation and sick leave based on a daily rate, it gets pretty expensive. So you can see the total estimated one-time cost down there along the bottom, and that averaged out to about $118,000. Now, you're going to pay that up front and at the end. That's not all going to come up front. But at some point, you're going to end up paying roughly that much for superintendent. Okay. So this is pretty much just the summary of that cost differential. So there you have your average base salary is 21.4% increase. You got your civic and community stipends and your automobile, which is something that our current superintendent does not receive. That's a 100% increase. Altogether, you're looking about a 26% increase just in your estimated annual salary and extra benefits. And then when you look at just your one-time costs there, it comes out to an average of about $118,000. Okay? Now, the only thing that I wanted to make a note of here is consider us having to pay the average one-time cost every 2 to 3 years if our selection process doesn't yield the right person or that person decides to resign. So I want to take just a second and quote a couple things that I got from an article that I found, and I will cite the article. This is from the TC Palm, and the article was titled Cost, One Factor to Consider When Selecting an Appointed Superintendent. And I'm not going to read the whole article, but this article was actually written in 2010. It was when Martin County was trying to decide whether they were going to go from elected to an appointed superintendent. And one of the things that I just wanted to point out here is that in this article it talks about a costly departure. And I'm just going to read here. It says, the cost involved when an appointed superintendent leaves a district can also be high. Indian River paid Roger Deering about $73,358 in unused sick and vacation time when he resigned in 2003 as the school superintendent to take a position in Manatee County. Indian River paid Tom Mayer about $374,438 for 18 months of salaries and benefits when the school board fired him in 2005. St. Lucie gave school superintendent Michael Lannon about $115,000 in accrued sick and vacation time when he retired in 2009. He was rehired 30 days later at the base pay of $175,000. So to me, I just thought that consider having to pay that $118,000 every couple years if your selection process doesn't yield that right person the first time. Okay? So now, in talking about the impact to the fund balance, we all know Florida statute requires the school district to have a 3% minimum fund balance. We know that our fund balance as of June 2014 was 2.24%. Based on our approved budget that we just approved, we projected the June 2015 fund balance to be 2.58%. In the letter that the superintendent sent to the state, it indicated in there that in order for us to get to a 3% fund balance by June 2015, we would need to increase our unreserved fund balance by about $1 million. The additional cost that we're looking at here for an appointed superintendent was not budgeted. We never talked about it in our budget. The only revenue available to offset that added cost would have to come out of our unreserved fund balance. And so that would result in a negative impact to our proposed fund balance, and I would say further risk to our bond rating. And I would just ask if I may, Dr. Copeland, do you have any comment or do you have any other take on that in terms of where, you know, the added cost and how it would impact our fund balance?
We certainly don't need additional expense. It is not in the budget. We have not considered that a part of the budget, so I'm not sure where the board would find that. They would have to direct me to find that additional expense. And like you said, it probably have to come out of fund balance.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So this begs the question, does the added cost and the risk of having to take it out of the fund balance, does it actually yield a return on investment? I want to refer back to my article here because further on down, there's a comment here that I think is quite interesting. Proponents of an appointed superintendent say it's well worth the extra cost. And I want to quote, "It's well worth it. What you're getting is experience," said Polk County School Board member Frank O'Reilly, who helped hire Polk's first appointed superintendent in 2004 when the voters approved the change from an elected superintendent to an appointed one. I think it's interesting to note that in 2004, Polk County was rated a C district. 14 years later, at the benefit of having an appointed superintendent, Polk County is still a C-rated district, and they're ranked 60th in the state. So, what's the return on investment? What does the data tell us? I went to school grades at fldoe.org and I pulled up a number of reports and data that I put into a spreadsheet, and this is what the data says. Of the population growth, so this was an argument that I've been hearing for the last couple years, is an argument in support of having an appointed superintendent. The larger the county, we need an appointed superintendent to be able to manage that. So of the 7 other districts comparable in size to Clay with appointed superintendents, only one of them ranks higher than Clay, and that would be St. John's. The other ones are all C-rated districts. Altogether, there's 24 districts that have larger populations than Clay. Of those 24, 19 of them have appointed superintendents, but only 6 of them rank higher than Clay. Qualification was an argument also in support of an appointed superintendent. Of the 26 appointed superintendents, 14 of them have doctorate degrees. I think that's a pretty high qualification. Of those 14, only 2 of them are A districts, 4 are B districts, and 8 are C districts. Altogether, only 3 of them rank higher than Clay. Experience. This was another argument. The argument that Clay County has declined over the past decade as a result of inexperience, that is a fallacy. The truth is, Clay County has been an A-rated district for the past decade. And the truth is, in 2013, 40 of the 67 districts dropped 1 letter grade as a result of FCAT 2.0 writing standard being raised to 3.5. And there is, in my backup here, if anybody wants to see it, there is the Florida District Grades history where it points out over the last decade all the times that the state raised the bar. And you could see those districts, every time they did, those districts would drop a letter grade and go up and go down. So the idea that experience is the reason why Clay County is declining is a fallacy. Clay County is not declining. Clay County dropped from an A to a B. Teachers and administrators agreed that the lack of preparation time given by the state for teachers to prepare students were to blame. And I heard that all over the place. It wasn't the teachers and it wasn't the superintendent. And since that time, Clay County has increased its overall numerical score and today is only 11 points shy of returning to an A district. Of the 26 districts with appointed superintendents, 50% of them are C-rated districts, 40% are B, and only 3 are A-rated districts. Of the top 10 districts in the state, 7 are elected and only 3 are appointed. So what does the data really say? and you can't argue with the data. The idea that an appointed superintendent is necessary for larger counties is fallacy. The data shows just the opposite. The idea that only an appointed superintendent with a higher education degree yields greater district outcome is also a fallacy. The data shows no correlation. The data shows no evidence at all that an appointed superintendent is responsible for yielding higher district outcomes. In fact, there are more elected superintendents in the state of Florida yielding higher district outcomes than there are appointed ones. And so with that, I would like to just say that based on this, what I would like to do, I put this on the agenda because I would like for the board, my board members, to consider the cost impact to the fund balance and to ask you that if this ballot measure is passed, I would like to ask you to please consider postponing the appointment process until the 2016 general election for two reasons. Number one, it would give us the chance to get our fund balance back to 3%. And secondly, it would allow this superintendent to finish out the 4-year term by which he was duly elected by the citizens of Clay County. So with that, I return it back to you, Madam Chair.
I have an apology to make to a couple of people in the audience. It just came to my attention, thanks to the deputy. There's an agenda in the back of the room that you look at to put the number that you want to address. And what just came to my attention is when things are pulled from the consent to discussion and so forth, it changes the numbers. Ms. Bush has not a lot of control. This computer program has a mind of its own, and it changes the numbers here, and she makes me up a agenda, sort of a cheat sheet, so that I'm going in line with what is here. But my numbers on this sheet don't match the numbers on the sheet you saw. So because of that, I've just gone through and I see that there's some cards here who really do want to address this item, which according to the other sheet was a different item. So now, before we get to discussion, we do have 2 more cards who want to address this item. And I do apologize. We have it straightened out and it won't happen again. Okay, next is Melanie Sanders.
Melanie Sanders, 8130 Meadowlark Court, Melrose, Florida. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we've all heard a lot of opinions over the last several months about the elected versus appointed superintendent issue. But I haven't heard anything that fits my thinking exactly, so I just would like to share that with you tonight. And this is just one reason that I don't feel like we need to consider an appointed superintendent at this time. I've worked in Clay County schools for almost 15 years as a substitute, a teacher, and an administrator. I'm also a mother of 2 Clay County students and a Clay County taxpayer and voter. In my schools, I've felt the effects of our budget tightening over the last few years, for sure. I've always had the things I needed to do my job, but lately that statement is only barely true. Yes, we still have the minimum that we need to get by. But in order to increase student achievement, it's my opinion that there are things that we need. We need books for classroom libraries. We need funds to reward and motivate students. We need updated technology, more computers, more handheld devices. We need the ability to purchase items to increase school spirit and for staff motivation. We need access to more professional learning experiences. We need pencils and paper. Yes, pencils and paper. There are times in the year that we literally do not have enough of those bare essentials. So I'm just wondering how we can justify spending any money to hire any firm to help us find a new superintendent. And in addition, the new superintendent would most likely be paid more than the current superintendent is now, since districts that are comparable to us usually pay their appointed superintendents more than what our elected superintendents make. And I just don't know where that money would come from. In my position as a school-based administrator, I'm an assistant principal. I'm asked often to approve purchases of specialty supplies, money to attend workshops, conferences, funding for special projects, and unfortunately I have to say no often. And that's okay, because I can make those tough decisions, like where to spend the little bit of money that we have available. But I'm having trouble saying no to teachers who spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars of their own money every year. No, I'm sorry, we can't send you to that worthwhile conference. No, I'm sorry, we don't have money to buy you that resource that you want. No, I'm sorry, there just aren't funds for that. Saying no to her, while this board potentially says yes to unnecessary spending, it just doesn't make sense. And unfortunately, I'm good at saying no. I've had a lot of practice. So no, I will not vote to give the ability to hire a search firm or pay a superintendent. That will be too expensive. Thank you.
Okay, and the other speaker I almost overlooked, Travis Christensen.
Travis Christensen, 2871 Affirmed Court. I'd like to thank Ms. McKinnon for that. That was very informative. I'm sure people could find other numbers and it'd be a debatable item. I mean, there's a lot of different costs. I mean, one is like, can you put a dollar amount on the reputation of the school district? Because the last 2 years, we have been the laughingstock of Northeast Florida. I'm not saying it's in one party, you know. When two parties argue, who's to say that one is entirely to blame? Well, to remind you, this is a ballot item. I'm not an attorney. But basically, the citizens are the head of government. We are a representative republic. In most cases, the citizens delegate their authority, in this case, to a school board. Now, the state legislature wrote a statute. Legislatures elected by the people that allows you, the majority of this board, to put an item on the ballot to appoint a superintendent of schools. That's the law. That's how the people are represented in a representative republic. Now, if this item comes back yes, I don't think it gives you the legal wiggle room to say let's wait 2 years, according to the wording. I believe that it says the superintendent will be appointed. Again, not an attorney, but I believe that that is legally binding. In that case, there will be no, if it comes back yes. I believe there will be no elected superintendent in schools that day that passes, in which case you will therefore be required to appoint someone in some form. I do not believe you have the legal authority to override a vote of the citizens and say we'll wait 2 years. No more than our county commission had the legal authority, which had to be pounded into and finally dealt by a judge to say let's wait 2 years. I believe the laws are pretty clear, and well, I appreciate the fiscal responsibility. Nobody wants to waste money, but that's the problem with ballot items. They're legally binding and there's no other way to do it. And I've become convinced because of the outrageous politics surrounding the office of superintendent, we have got to get this man out of office. I don't know why people are giggling. They must see something different than I do. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. McKinnon, it's back to you. That was all the cards.
Excuse me. So I'd like to move for approval.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Wait, let's get a second before we have discussion. Is there... Have a motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. Now discussion. Ms. Bullock?
Well, I had a question regarding the chart. First of all, you listed several superintendents. Do you know when they were appointed?
They are the superintendents that are in office right now.
I know, but how long have they been in office? Okay. Like, I know for a fact in Alachua County, he's not been there very long.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, so let me see. So I have a sheet here.
So, I mean, he's held accountable for this C grade when he's not been there but a few months. So
yeah, okay.
I don't know about the rest of them, but I do know about him.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when they were appointed, but I do have some data here. I do know that Dr. Joyner at
The
St. Johns
A-rated
County.
one, yes.
Yeah, he's been there for quite a while.
Madam Chair, I
Yeah.
think you have all their contracts, if that's... you
Yeah,
can
the
pull 'em up and
contracts
look
are
at them,
in.
See what date...
Yeah,
Right,
they're in the
does it-
backup. Those are all the
Does
contracts.
it say when they were appointed?
It does not.
That's
Some
what
of
I'm
them are
asking.
renewed.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, some of those contracts are renewals,
Right.
but it doesn't, I read through every single contract, and it didn't actually, there's a date on the contract of when the contract was
But
approved.
not when they were actually...
Right, but not if this was their first time or...
Because I know it's his first time.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion?
I had one other question. Under the miscellaneous expense, under the annual automobile supplement allowance, I'm sure that we do provide travel allocation for our superintendent, whether he has one of our vehicles he uses for time to time. I'm sure that we do take care of that. Is that correct, Mr. Van Zant?
Do you have an automobile? Do we?
Well, he doesn't, but he has use of.
When I go down to Tampa, I usually take a white car.
Okay.
I've done that 4 or 5
So
times.
those
They're
things
all
are factored
Fords,
in
not
there.
really my preference. I usually just drive my truck.
Thank you.
Okay.
But it's got over 200,000 miles, so I don't drive it all the way down to
Yeah,
Tampa anymore.
thank you.
Okay.
Ms. McKinnon, what's
Yes.
the terminal pay here in Clay County?
Terminal pay, according to the Florida statute, is where they take...
I know what it is. I'm asking how many days are in Clay County that we pay.
It's based on how many accrued sick days and vacation that you have.
Ms. McCabe, is it a maximum of 120 days or 180 days in Clay County that we pay to an employee when they leave the district, when they retire? Is it 120?
For an employee, it's 120 for sick and 60 for annual, but of course
Right.
our superintendent doesn't have that
Right. But I
balance.
believe our last superintendent, when he left as superintendent, did it follow him or just from his retirement?
I don't recall. I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe, from what I read, elected superintendents do not get the benefit of the terminal pay.
I also went through the school grades, and I noticed that the ones that you chose were all C districts, and they are comparable. But there are also, of the 19 districts that received a B, 10 of them were appointed superintendents. And I noticed, and it has nothing to do with our district, but the 4 districts that were Ds and the 3 districts that were Fs were elected superintendents.
Yep.
We are declining, we do know that, and I think the biggest factor is that this is a bad governance model to have an elected superintendent and elected school board. You know, we are both responsible to the constituents. The school board is tasked with setting policy and budget, and the superintendent is tasked with carrying out or implementing the policies that we in fact set in place, which is not happening here in our county. Just today, there was a press conference outside. The superintendent was notified by the chairman of the board and our attorney of what our policy reads and how any outside organization that chooses to use our grounds has to follow proper procedure. Yet, they were not asked to step off the school grounds like the chairman directed our superintendent to do.
I didn't direct him.
Well,
I can't
you
direct the superintendent.
requested.
I requested.
So this is just a bad model to me. And you know, if we should embark on this better model of government with an appointed superintendent, then we can adhere to the state salary, which is, you know, $122,000 for the superintendent, who, by the way, receives $53,000 a year in his retirement. If we had an appointed superintendent, it would be the same as our senior staff, which is a lot less. It's about $27,000 less a year. So there would be cost savings there.
No, there wouldn't, because even an appointed superintendent in the contracts that you have, they are provided a tax-sheltered annuity equivalent to 15% of their pay, yes,
Not all of them were.
which washes out in the
contract.
end. They all get the same, and that's the reason why I didn't even show it on there.
I think
because
the most
it's a
important
wash.
thing is that the school board will try to keep costs down. We want to get the greatest benefit from an appointed superintendent and minimize expenses. And I know that it will be very complex negotiations that take place, and that's the reason that we'll have a committee selecting the most qualified. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were able to find somebody here in Clay County that would possibly be the same, or if not less. I mean, I feel very strongly about this governance model being very bad for the district. So your presentation was excellent. I think your data can be interpreted by different people in different ways. So you did a very good job, and thank you for sharing it.
Any other discussion? There was a motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
No. Motion fails, 2-3. The next item, public hearing on amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.03D1, the Superintendent of Schools appointment of superintendent, job description, minimum qualifications, and performance responsibilities. This is a public hearing, and I do have a card on it, but on the public hearing, you can just come and speak. I'll open the public hearing. Anyone here to address this item? Mr. Christensen, you did have a card on this, but the public hearing is open if you'd like to speak.
Still Travis Christensen, still live at 2871 Affirm Court.
You didn't just move, huh?
Lake Asbury. Basically, what you get with an appointed superintendent of schools is the same thing as you get with any other appointed manager. Like they appoint city managers and county managers, and they appoint the managers of virtually every single government body in existence in America. Is that the appointee, well, he's generally highly qualified, and they just do their job. There's not any conflict. They're supposed to give recommendations to a board, carry out the policies of the board, carry out the day-to-day business. Now, when you get into the politics, what we've seen in Clay County for the last 2 years is over the top. Because I'm of the opinion, you know, a lot of the people who've come in here, public speaking, which they have a right to do, well, they're supporters of the superintendent. And in a certain extent, it has undermined the ability of this governing board to govern. And this new political committee, Citizens Voice, I've got a lot of problem with that because I am a citizens activist. I've stood up on a lot of issues over the years. Never got a dime, never got a hookup from anybody. But I believe they're Charlie's people. And I looked at their finances today. Now, I know of a lot of people in the past who've been in citizens groups. And generally they're for the citizens, mostly fighting against special interests. Don't really, people who are suspicious of the rich and the powerful. And it's almost entirely funded by special interests. $2,000 from a lobbyist, $1,000 from a charter school form, and for some ungodly reason, $2,500 from a pharmaceutical company. Why in the world is a pharmaceutical company the biggest contributor to what's supposed to be a grassroots political committee? I don't know what's going on, but I'm really afraid what's going to happen after elections.
We won't have
If we get enough puppets on the board, these people are basically going to see like all your public money that goes into schools going to all these special interest groups, basically sucking your taxpayer money and putting it in their pockets, because that's why they're putting money into it. Thank you.
Okay, the public hearing is still open. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Amber Shepard, Clay Citizens Voice, Political Committee Chair. I find it very interesting at the last school board meeting how I was gavelled down over and over and over again because my comments supposedly were not relevant to the appointed versus elected superintendent. Yet at this board meeting, a gentleman is able to bring up a political committee that has absolutely nothing to do with the public hearing, and you allow it. So, like the letter I received that said about arbitrarily enforcing your board rules, I think that this is a prime example, and it needs to stop. And, on topic, this is highly inappropriate to be having these conversations and these changes to board policy. I really believe that Ms. Bullock ought to recuse herself, considering the citizens have already voted that they don't want her opinion in these matters anymore. And maybe we should have the vote be brought down to 4 people that are still
Those
active on
citizens
the board.
voted you down too, Ms. Shepherd.
That's right. That's right. And oh, wait, are we allowed to clap now?
We are tonight.
Okay, fabulous. I will remember that. Thank you, Ms. Karakis, for
very welcome.
your approval.
You're
Thank
very
you.
welcome.
Deputies, if the audience claps again, I want you to clear the room of anyone clapping. We have asked you not to clap at the board meetings. We do not allow it. Remember, we do this. Remember this. We are not going to have people from the audience hollering out improperly. Now, conduct yourself properly, and we will have some decorum in this meeting, please. Mr. Miss Shepherd, if you holler out again, I will ask the deputy to escort you out of this meeting.
Ma'am, Mr.
All right, Mr. Nichols, would you
Let
go
me
ahead?
I really don't
I'm
care.
trying. Let's
care.
get some decorum and a little respect here.
Yes, ma'am. I don't care if they try to shout it down over me. It doesn't make any difference because, one of the things that what Tina said about her not being voted in either, that, I don't think that's really anything that we need to be discussing right now. This is about job descriptions. And like I said before, one of the advantages of going over and appointed is we can take a look at the specific needs of the district. Right now, we say that we're in a financial difficulty. Well, we could find somebody that has financial specialties, somebody that knows how to manage financial difficulty and shepherd us through this. And again, I'm not taking anything away from Mr. Van Zant, but it's just, I see it as a way of making sense with what we're doing, of setting a direction, setting a course, and getting the right person to take us in that direction. And we can tailor the needs of the job to whatever our district needs at that time. I find that the highest degree of admiration in that we can do that. We have the ability to do that when we go to an appointed superintendent. And like I said, again, nothing against Mr. Van Zant, but when you're sitting there and you're trying to pick from people that are going to get voted in, you really don't get to make those kind of distinctions. Now, if Mr. Van Zant had a doctorate in finance and could come in and do this, I'd be all for an elected position. I wouldn't care one way or the other if he could do the job. And I'm not saying that he's not done a reasonably and a decent job. We need to get to the fact that we need to do what's right for our school district to make our school district stronger. Now, you're talking about the C's, and they are asking about the superintendents. Of those superintendents that she mentioned, Ms. Bullock, the one that had been on the longest was in 2010. The rest of them there was one in 2011, one in 2012, and 2 of them in 2013. So they really haven't been on there long enough to bring them up. So, we can't really cite that. If you're going to show us some data and show us some facts, prove it. If you want to do that, go look at the 17,000 other districts across the United States that have an appointed superintendent and show me how the data really stacks up.
Can I just make a comment, Madam Chair? I just would like to make a comment. I appreciate your comments about the finance, but I just want to say that I do think we have one of the finest chief financial officers around who does have a doctorate degree.
He certainly does.
In Dr. Copeland. And when it comes to managing finances, that's exactly what Dr. Copeland does. And a budget every year is brought to this school board, and it's this school board who approves a budget up or down. It is not the superintendent. I just thought I would clarify that.
The budget, the superintendent brings the recommended budget?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Is there one more speak?
Madam Chair,
This is getting out of hand. Say it the next time.
I think it's real inappropriate for the board to interact with people in a public hearing.
We don't normally do that, but we're trying to be open. Okay, is there any more, are there any more speakers? If you'd state your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Joe Riley. I live in Green Cove Springs, Florida. I'd like to agree with everything Ms. McKinnon brought up tonight. I've been doing a lot of the background over the past several months on appointing a superintendent versus an elected one, and I agree with everything she said. Everything she come out with is hard numbers. One of the things I'm surprised she didn't bring up was, if you go to schooldigger.com or just about any other website that you want to look for a great place to go live, one of the things that they score is schools. The state of Florida, and I was surprised, depending on which website you go to, the state of Florida is ranked either 10th, somewhere between 10th and 17th in the country. Now, I don't give a flying flip about the rest of the schools in the country, that they're all appointed. What that's telling me, what all these other websites and all these other sources are telling me, if state of Florida is in the top 10 or in the top 20 even of states for school districts, and the state of Florida has more elected superintendents than appointed superintendents, maybe the other states have it wrong. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board during this public hearing?
Excuse me, I have to catch my breath. I have a breathing problem that's acting up tonight.
Okay, you might need to pull the mic down a little bit too, Ms. Croft.
When I get upset, sometimes that happens. My name is Sylvia Croft. I live in Keystone Heights, Florida, and you have my address on all kinds of stuff. I want to make an appeal. I almost cried a few minutes ago, burst into tears almost, because I really can't believe that you don't know what you did. You allowed people to clap when they agreed with you and Ms. Karakis. You didn't say a word, you didn't gavel. But when it was somebody, when we clapped for who we agreed with, that's a terrible no-no. That's what's wrong with up here. You have your own agenda. Mr. Christensen can come here and say who has what. I could tell who your contributors are, and some of them to me are pretty bizarro. Okay? I just want to say that because I know you wouldn't have to get rid of Mr. Van Zant the day of the election if it wasn't a personal hatred and bitterness that you carry in your heart. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board during the public hearing? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Let's see, Mr. Karakis, this is your item.
I move approval of the job description of the superintendent of Clay County School Board.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 3-2.
No.
3-2. I didn't hear. All of a sudden it dawned on me I didn't hear it. Okay. Okay. The next item. Public hearing on amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.03D2, the Superintendent of Schools, appointment of superintendent, candidate search, evaluation, and hiring. Ms. Karakis, but this is a public hearing, and let's see, okay. I'll open the public hearing for this item. Mr. Christian, you did have a card. Did you want to address the board during the public hearing? Okay. Anybody else would like to speak to the board during the public hearing? Then I'll bring it back to the board, close the public hearing. Ms. Kerekes?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Next item, approved citizen application form for Clay County School Board Superintendent Selection Committee members. Ms. Kerekes. And I'll wait, I do have a card on this one. Amber Shepherd. I'll wait just a minute.
I guess at this point it's just fruitless. Again, I just feel like Ms. Bullock needs to recuse herself. She's been unelected by the citizens of Clay County. We're not interested in her opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kerekes, this is your item. Just like,
I move approval.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a comment to make. And I just want everybody to know that this application mirrors the county commission that they use for their charter review committee. And I would like my motion, I'd like to move that we approve the application for, the committee application for superintendent of Clay County Schools, and direct the superintendent to have an MIS number assigned to this and publish it on the website immediately. I'd like the citizens to have access to this as of tomorrow or Monday at the very latest, so that if they would like to go on and fill out this application, it can be done immediately. And I would like the applications to be sent to Mr. Bickner, the school board attorney, and he can then send them out to all 5 of the school board members. So my motion is approved the application form for the Clay County Superintendent of the Clay County School District, and direct the superintendent to have an MIS number assigned to it and publish it on the website immediately.
And where would these, if they get applications, they go into Mr. Bickner?
They should go to Mr. Bickner.
Any more discussion?
Why would they go to Mr. Bickner? He's not our secretary.
He's not, but we don't have a secretary. I guess the citizens could mail them to each of us. I feel that it just makes more sense to send it to him and have him forward it to all 5 of the board members, so that everybody sees all the applications that come in.
Why could not, I guess, Mrs. Bush do that? I don't know. She's a secretary.
Mr.
Madam,
Bickner, do you have a problem with this?
I think from the standpoint of appropriateness, you do have a secretary. The superintendent is a secretary to the board. I would suggest that
That's state statutes, that the superintendent serves as secretary to the board.
I would
But
suggest-
in reality, Ms. Bush does it,
I would suggest that you just
the work.
amend your motion to make it so that I am copied with everything rather than it's sent original to me.
Okay.
Where would the originals
So
be
where would the
sent?
originals be sent to?
Secretary of the board.
Okay. I'll amend my motion to say that they are sent to Ms. Karen Bush, Secretary to the School Board, and the School Board Attorney copied on every application that is submitted.
Ms. Bullock, do you amend your second?
I second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Ms. Buchanan and Ms. Graham dissenting. The next item is Network and District Device Overview School District of Clay County. This was pulled by Ms. Kerekes, and let me see. No, I have a card on the next one. Okay, Ms. Kerekes?
I had pulled this just to really have it as an item to discuss among the board. And Mr. Hendricks, I don't know if he's out there. I think I saw him earlier today. He did send me an email, and I apologize for not getting back with you. I don't have a problem with this. I just wanted to just get some clarification. I know this is for our student use, and I know that now that they are bringing their own devices to school, and I really just wanted you to explain it to, and I don't know if it's you or Ms. Cornegay who should explain it, but just kind of explain it to the district for those out there who are looking at it and wondering, why is this coming before us?
Actually, both of these documents are for the employee handbook.
It's for the employee
Staff,
handbook.
not students.
Well, this one actually says students on it. It says the school district Clay County network is accessible to all Clay County students and employees. And that's what concerned me, that it talks about students on there.
Right, it's talking about the network,
Okay.
but this is meant to go into the employee handbook. The student code of conduct already came before the board and
Right,
has been published.
right.
This is for inclusion in employee.
So were there any changes to this from last year?
Yes, quite a few.
Okay, would you explain the changes?
Oh, absolutely. As you know, within IT, within technology, this should be a living, breathing document.
Right.
In fact, I would even caution that this document be reviewed monthly to make sure that we are in line with industry standards. Not to mention any particular vendors, but Facebook or Twitter, they change their privacy policies, and we need to also make sure that we change our policies or our guidelines.
So what exactly do we change in this?
I would have to get the original document, and I could have brought that tonight if I would have known.
All right, well, like I said, I really didn't have an issue with this one.
And actually, the original document is online. We can take a look at it if you'd like. But what districts are doing around the country, just to give you kind of a historical, this section of the employee handbook was approximately 12 to 14 pages. It was scaled down to 5 pages. Most districts have a 1-page.
Right.
These are just basic guidelines. If it becomes an HR issue, then Ms. McCabe and her department
Right.
take over.
Okay. All right, well, then I would move approval on it. I just really wanted to know, and I apologize for not returning your email and getting back to you this afternoon.
Glad I could answer questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I had a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Did you second, Ms. Graham? Okay. Have a motion by Ms. Kirikas, second by Ms. Graham. Any further discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Next is Employee Social Media Guidelines, School District of Clay County. This was pulled also by Ms. Kirikas, and I do have a card on this. Liz Crane?
Good evening, Liz Crane. You have my address for the record. Today, I recently learned of the school district's initiative to use social media as a way to communicate with families, community members, and future homeowners of Clay County. I applaud the district for entering the digital age as a way to communicate. My applause, however, is that of a golf clap when I learned of what types of information would be placed on Facebook pages. It is my understanding, and again, I just learned this today, that our schools will have Facebook pages that will include stories of the happenings within our schools and pictures of our students. In 2003, a reporter came to my classroom to film my students making cards for a father who was on the USS Truman. I was under very strict instruction by the administration that no student faces were to be filmed. This guideline was met. Now, 10 years later, we are willingly to put our students on the internet. I'm very concerned, and I have questions. I spoke to a few parents tonight at my gym and to get their opinion. Here are some quotes. No, hell no. I am a parent. I will determine what pictures, if any, of my children will go on the internet. What if there's a custody issue between parents? No, I don't want my child's picture on a school's Facebook page. That is a shopping list for predators. No. Some questions to think about. Who will be liable if pictures are posted that should not be posted? Who will be liable if, heaven forbid, the site is used as a shopping list? Who will be liable if a comment is placed on a page? Way to go, Abby, you're an awesome sister. Who will be liable if a parent later complains that pictures were posted without their express permission? Now, from a labor perspective, it is my understanding that effective October 31st, Facebook will be available to all employees on school computers. Note to my teachers who are watching at home, do not go on Facebook on a school computer. It can be tracked. While this document for employees is filled with weasel words such as guidance and may, I'm still deeply concerned. Questions to ponder. Will teachers be disciplined if they violate one of these guidelines? Will teachers be placed on PDPs if they violate one of these guidelines? Who will be monitoring the teachers' Facebook pages to ensure that these guidelines are being followed? Will there be a new position created just for this purpose? If a teacher does happen to go on Facebook during contract hours to check their Kingdoms of Camelot, will they be disciplined or placed on a PDP? Teachers, again, do not go on Facebook on a school computer. It can be tracked. I also learned that there will be teachers who will be posting on the school's Facebook pages and monitoring these comments. More questions. Will this be a compensated duty? When will the teachers do this? What if they allow a comment to be posted that they do not find offensive, but someone else does? What if they do not allow a comment that they feel is offensive and others do not? Will these teachers be disciplined for making these mistakes? Will the teacher be liable if they post pictures of students that should not be posted? If this happens, will the school board pay the attorney fees and possible lawsuit settlement if the need arises? Or will the teacher be on their own? Thank you.
Ooh. I think I want Mr. Hendrick to come back up.
Yeah.
Mr. Hendrick, can you ease our fears on
She
this?
went awfully quick.
I want to make sure we're not putting pictures of kids all over Facebook. I mean, please, tell me we're not doing that.
Again, the document
Second
before
bullet.
you for information this evening is a guidance and assistance for not only faculty but support staff on their personal Facebook use, not on our network. This is not dealing with our protocol or procedures for a district website or a district social media site.
So they're not going to...
These
I
are
think
strictly-
the board members, all 5 of us, are like, whoa.
These are strictly helpful hints, again, to support faculty, giving them an idea of what can be done when you're on social media. These are, again, meant to assist employees with proper use of social media as a school board employee. Not on district network, but when you're at home on social media.
Okay.
Two different
So
items.
somebody won't be going they won't be going in the schools and taking pictures of Susie Smith and Johnny Jones and putting it on Facebook so that some wacko knows where they go to school and all that if they get on the school's Facebook page. I mean, we want to make sure our kids are as safe as possible.
Absolutely, and this helps
That won't happen.
Can I ask?
not only help with students, but help with staff.
Yeah,
This-
I've always, and this may be a legal question, but I've always been told that, if they come into the classroom, that they just can take a picture of like the back of the heads. I know when Miss Mala used to work for us, I've heard her say several times, you just take the back of their heads and you don't do, is that y'all's understanding?
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
It's my understanding
Parents
that
had to
it
sign
is
up.
illegal. You cannot
Yeah.
take a picture of a student and put
Yeah.
it.
Now,
But
and like, I guess they could put on there if they got permission from the parent, like if a child won a art contest at school and they wanted to put it, but wouldn't they have to get written permission from the parent?
Actually, there's an opt-out clause. A parent would have to say, I do not want my child.
That's already in play.
Oh, so they just opt out, so they could get, if Johnny wins the art contest, Johnny Smith could have his picture on the school
So to the-
Facebook page, is that what you're saying?
Could be Facebook, could be our district website, it could be our school websites.
So unless a parent opts out, their child can be put there.
This is no change from where
Yeah.
it's been forever.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't want your
I
kid
just-
to attend a class, have a photo taken of them, you opt out.
Out.
I think
This
the-
is not a change from
I
that.
think the concern is, because I kind of feel concerned about it too, is, our district website, yes, it does have some photos, and parents do sign, but if we're doing Facebook pages at all the schools, who's making sure that those kids that are put on there have a permission slip signed, or the
Or an
parent
opt-out
didn't
sign.
opt out? I'm confused on it.
Where is the opt-out? Is that in our student code of conduct?
Yes.
Yeah, that is given to every parent every year. It's on our website. Again, if you're listening and you're a parent, you don't want your child's photo on something, you opt out, you communicate. We're expanding communication, but we're not changing anything from the way it's been since any of us have been here.
And does each teacher have a list of kids in their classroom who have, the parents have opted out?
I'm sure they do. That's kind of protocol.
I would,
Do they?
Ms. Cornigan, Ms.
I
Cornigan,
mean, us-
is that?
us assuming
Let me
it,
ask Ms.
do
Cornigan.
they have that or not?
She's the instructional. Do all the teachers have a list in their classroom of any kids?
They should maintain that list, yes. And in fact, when we go in with any media, even if it's our own staff, we always ask, is there anyone in here who has an opt-out that we need to exclude from the photo? And
Okay. And I think that's all that the board wanted to be assured that, we're trying to
Well,
keep
if we're
everybody
putting-
safe.
If we're putting student pictures on, is it just the photo, or are we actually putting their names too? 'Cause that concerns me. If we're putting a picture up and then we're saying, Johnny Smith and Mrs. Brown's second grade class, we don't
Well-
want to give out all this information because, there are predators out there. Not everybody's a good person. And, we are responsible for these children. Their safety and security comes first. We all know that. And so I understand why we're putting this in place and everything. But the fact that we're going to have more Facebook accessibility there just concerns me.
And that's why we've recently revised and we're conducting training right now with school personnel on appropriate ways to post items, not only on their school website, but on social media as they move forward with that.
Okay.
And we're actually putting more controls in place on the social media pages for schools.
And that's
Well,
good.
And I do agree with you. Please bring this back to us and the other one whenever it's necessary so that we are on top of it, because this is very important. I mean,
With
we
this day and age, it is
can't let
just
this slide.
evolving,
Our kids'
so.
safety is just,
Well, we can't think up someone else will, and you have to always
That's
be one
right.
step, try to stay a step ahead, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Karakis, did you make a motion?
I did.
Did we have a
It's
motion?
information only.
Oh, this is just for information?
No.
Just a minute.
That's what it says on my agenda. It
Just a
says
minute, let me look
recommended
here.
action for information only.
But this was pulled from the consent agenda, so it didn't
Correct.
get...
It didn't get approved.
It's information only.
It's just information only, so I don't guess it mattered.
So we don't...
We don't have to vote on it because it's just for information. Okay, thank you for observing that. All right, let's see, where am I now? That was C4. Was that the,
that was C4.
all
You're
right,
up
that's
to
the one
human
that Ms.
resources.
Crane talked on. Okay. All right, next, we're up to Human Resources. Item, Special Action A, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move
approval.
I'll second.
Wait a minute, who made the motion?
You did.
All right, Ms. Karakis, and second by Ms. McKinnon. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Human Resources Special Action B. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Hey, you talk fast. You have to go fast.
You're quick.
Motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Human Resources, and for those of you who have never been to a school board meeting, these are actions that we take that are confidential, so there will be no discussion on this. It's employees' confidential information. Special Action C, I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
A motion by Ms. Bullock, second by
I'll second.
Ms. Karakis. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Next is adoption of digital classroom plan, pulled by Mr. Bickner.
Madam Chair, if you look at each station, I have put a single page, and it says 49/C7. That is page 3 of that particular item in the backup. The only change is that all of the object codes were incorrectly entered. And so the object codes have been changed on the handout that I just gave you. So with that change, that's how you'd be approving it.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve this with the changes.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Excuse me. Next, we had a card pulled on this. This is resolution endorsing Red Ribbon Week, October 20.
What happened to C10, number 50?
That's coming next.
Okay.
This is where Ms. Bush told me that the computer program would throw it in.
Okay.
We're trying to work with the boss man in the computer. Okay, let's see. This is October 23 through 21. That's not right. 2014. I have a card from Miss Karen Donovan.
Hello, I'm Karen Donovan from Orange Park, Florida. I am opposed to the legalization of the use, possession, cultivation, delivery, and sale of marijuana. While its stated purpose on the upcoming ballot might be medicinal, in every state where it is legal, the recreational use of it has increased in teens ages 12 to 17. Getting high on marijuana in this age group translates into high-risk behaviors, truancy, drug dependency, and possibly opening the door to more dangerous drugs. Research has shown that in the maturing brain, use of marijuana destroys brain cells. In fact, a lowering of IQ by as much as 8 points. Secondhand smoke from marijuana will be a danger in the home. Children are vulnerable because they cannot leave the house and may not know to leave even the room when it fills with smoke. This can result in a secondhand high and increased risk of lung disease. There is no standard for the product's strength or quality as written because the Food and Drug Administration has not tested nor approved it. The American Medical Association opposes it, as well as the American Cancer Society and all other professional organizations. For the diseases for which this law is supposed to be protecting and helping. Instead, these organizations urge that more research be done. Broad immunity from criminal and civil liability will be granted to anyone and everyone involved in this chain of custody of medical marijuana. A designated caregiver will require no background check and no medical training to sign up, purchase, and sell marijuana, even to minors, because there is no parental consent written in. Therefore, someone we don't want selling this product to our child may be able to do so legally. And so the Florida Sheriff Association is against it, because once it is into law, they will not be able to protect us from these anomalies. The list of diseases is followed by this quote, or other conditions for which a physician believes that the medical use of marijuana might likely outweigh the potential risk for a patient. This means that in other states, this law has passed. Certificates have been written by doctors for things such as anxiety, insomnia, and backache. It would be almost impossible to fix its many flaws because it would be enshrined in the Constitution rather than being a general law that could be changed or improved. As education leaders in the county, I call upon you as a united school board to issue a public proclamation against legalizing the use of marijuana.
Thank you very much. And this is a resolution endorsing Red Ribbon Week, October 23 through 31. It was a typo on my agenda of 2014. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. All those in favor? Discussion, I'm sorry.
I have a comment. I just wanted to clarify what Red Ribbon Week is, because I think probably what you said was very good, but I think some people are probably confused what that has to do exactly with this. And Red Ribbon Week, it's a celebration focused on the importance of supporting young people and strengthening parent-community networks by creating an environment in which our youth may live a healthy, safe life. And it says Clay County Red Ribbon Week, a week of celebration when every Clay County resident is encouraged to wear a red ribbon to symbolize our commitment to establishing healthy and safe communities for our citizens, especially our children, and to participate in events throughout the week that support a positive lifestyle. So just to clarify for those who weren't sure what it was.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Now, the next, Mr. Bickner, permission to travel out of state, pulled by Mr. Bickner.
The only reason that was pulled was that when it was submitted, it said, in the item, it said travel to Washington, D.C. That's amended to San Antonio, Texas. I think you did probably get a memorandum in that, but pulled it just to make sure it's amended properly.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Have a motion by Ms. Graham, second by Ms. McKinnon. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Monthly financial report for September 2014. Dr. Copeland.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, members of the board, I provided for you the financial statements for the month of September and year-to-date through September. It's listed by fund, and so it's pretty straightforward at this time of year. Hopefully, as we get a little further down and we get our count, which takes place this week on our FTE, it'll have a positive impact, and hopefully we'll receive that prior to our Christmas break in December. Normally, that third calculation, or any calculation, always comes the day after our board meeting. And so, which means then that the report of that third calculation would not be until January. So that's the important thing that's really going on that'll affect our financial status.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland. Any questions for Dr. Copeland? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Have a motion by Ms. Graham, second by Ms. Bullock. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Authorize appraisal, surveys, and environmental studies of specified parcels of property for school district use. Mr. Merrill, I just almost had a senior moment there. I know your name.
Madam Chairman, over the past 2 months, I've been given or approached to either purchase property or sell some of our property to various folks in the area. And in accordance with the school board policy, in order to employ professional services, we're asking that now. Some of these may have come to you before, and if in fact you've already said no way, that's fine. I'm not married to any of these properties, so I'm open. What I do want to do is due diligence, so that next board meeting I can come to you with a recommendation, either yay or nay, and be able to back that up with some facts.
Mr. Merrill, did you have hard copies for us?
Yes.
You did.
Oh,
it's packet.
Yeah.
I went to the Clay County Property Appraiser's website.
I got it. Thank you.
And got the pictures for you. The first one is Rodrigo Road, which is across from the maintenance department's parking lot. Earlier this month, the city of Green Cove Springs passed a resolution offering the school board basically the first right of refusal to purchase this property. And this property has been ping-ponged back and forth for the past 6 or 8 years, and it looks like it's sort of been a property appraiser's battle. No two appraisals are the same. No two quantities, their acreage, are the same. So there's some diligence we're going to have to do to take a look at this. It could be used for this building right there with the brown roof is our small engine mechanic and pest control. They're extremely crowded in there. We could move those over. They've also got a storage building behind there that we could move and give them more room. I know Ms. Roth is looking for an area to store a lot of her ESE equipment that she's got scattered all over the county. We may be able to consolidate this here for them as well. So if the price is right, it could be of use to us. There's a lot of things that need to be hammered out. I met with people from the City of Green Cove Springs Public Works Department. We toured the building. It's in pretty good shape. I'm going to have our folks evaluate the roof on it. We've got to look at easements and environmental aspects that had come up in the last appraisal. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out first, but I wanted to let you know that the City of Green Cove Springs had put a motion to offer it to us first refusal. And the second piece of property, any
Do
questions?
y'all, Mr. Bittner, let me ask you something, because there's several items on this, and we may be in favor of some and not others, so can we vote on each of these as a separate item?
Well, there's no way to, here's the problem that I have the way that it's set up is normally they would have been entered in each one separately. You would have had 6 different items on the agenda. There's no way, as I understand the computer program, for her to put 6 separate votes in. So what I would suggest to you is that you try to get a consensus ahead of time, and then someone make a motion that says basically we approve A, B, and C and exclude C, D, and E. And if you can manage to do it that way, it would work,
So
but
we'll
I don't
just have
believe
to
that there's
keep
a
a
way to do
tally
it
of what we're
otherwise.
doing as we go, okay? So that would be number 1. Okay, so let's go, or did y'all have any questions for Mr. Merrill on this property before we leave it? Sure.
I'm going to save my questions for the end.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about this piece of property, because we're going to have discussion on each. If there's all so different, and I think it'd be better to have discussion on it so we can kind of know where we are, and you can make you a list then if you're for or against this one. And
I think really my only question for the end is, I noticed in the issue and rationale or under the financial impact, you don't actually have any kind of cost in terms of what it's going to cost for all of these. Do you have any idea on you don't have that yet though, do you, in terms of doing the surveys and the
I went back and researched what we had done in the past, and obviously a survey or an environmental study is going to depend upon the size of the field, whether it's an open field, whether it's full of trees and they have to slog their way through it. But generally a survey has cost between about $750 to $1,000 or $1,500. An environmental study is generally a little bit more, between $1,000 and $1,600, and an appraisal is about $1,500 to $2,000.
Okay.
now, on this, it says, excuse me, Ms. McKinnon, do you have something else?
No, I was just trying to, so if we're going to go through, so each of those costs that you just mentioned, roughly average would be times the number of parcels that we have here.
Right. And like you said, it could vary depending on what it is, but it says an environmental study was done 11 years ago that pointed out some environmental issues with the property, old transformer with PCBs, as well as other concerns. And I think when I talked to you, this is the piece that has a septic tank, right? It's not hooked up.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
This is.
That's up in Keystone.
That's the Lions Club.
Okay, this doesn't have. Okay, so this had the PCBs, and this didn't have an eagle on it, did it?
There's an egret's nest on one of the power
Are they
poles.
in?
We would have to leave that there.
It's not an egret, it's a diminutive eagle, the one with the white tail and the brown head. What do you call that?
The what?
It's like an eagle, but it's not an egret. An egret's a different animal.
But it's a protected species. Osprey?
Osprey,
There you go.
oh, okay.
Thank you.
Diminutive eagle, an osprey.
We're not, you can see we're all bird experts up here. Okay, so there was a bird of some kind nest that would have to be.
Right, and that's one of the things we've approached City of Green Cove on, is they still got the power lines and the transformer that are there, so there'll have to be an easement, and they still possess that facility as far as.
And the PCBs.
We'd have to get a clean environmental statement saying.
All right, so we got PCBs, bird, and transformer lines. Sounds. And did they try to sell this to us before for about $300,000?
Yes, ma'am.
And so now they're saying it's appraised at $154,000. They really want to get rid of this. No. Okay.
So just for clarification, we're not
This is-
voting, right? We're
no,
just
this is
voting
just to do the
allow him
survey,
to do
the
surveys.
environmental
Okay.
study,
Correct,
and
yeah.
Just
So-
authorize me to
see if the
continue to
bird's
work
still
this.
there and the PCBs.
Correct. So roughly what you stated for each of those 3 things, we're talking about between $3,000 and $3,500 per
Well-
piece for those 3? Okay.
Yeah. But
It's not a definite.
And,
Yeah, okay.
and some of those, we request that Green Cove do the environmental and give us a copy of it.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say, is, are we asking them to maybe do this rather than us pay for these studies and all?
Yes.
Okay.
And the same thing with the property for the land swap. We
Yes,
wouldn't be paying
that's
any of
coming up
this.
next. Correct.
Or the property by Montclair Elementary that the homeowner is looking at, we would not be paying.
Correct.
So we're giving approval to hire someone, but they will be responsible for those bills.
Right. This is just approval for me to do the research so I can come back to you and say, this is what we recommend
Okay.
after we've
But you're
got all the
saying
data.
that Green Cove would pay for the environmental study, the survey, and everything that we needed to be done?
I think that I would work with Mr. Bickner, obviously, and we'd hammer that out, but I want to make sure I had a clean environmental from the city before we went forward.
There were, may I speak?
Mr. Bickner, yes.
We've looked at this before, and there were a lot of issues that we would have to hammer out, and a lot of issues that we'd have to deal with Green Cove Springs, not the least of which is the road is not where it's supposed to be. So
The what?
the road. So we're not real sure whose property the road is actually on, whether it's town property or our property or somewhere else. So
You know, I mean, if they want to pay for the environmental studies and the survey and whatever, but I'm only one board member, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not real excited about this one.
I'm not either.
So, it's up, to- you
While
know.
we're talking Green Cove, can we go right to the next Green Cove one?
Well, let's just wait a minute. You know, y'all can
could-
decide.
it
When we
could
get to
be
the
that-
end, you can decide, okay.
Be that they do all of that and come back, and then you can still decide if it's,
Yeah.
something.
But I just don't want us to spend any money at all. If they don't want to pay for all the cost and the studies, I'm not for spending a nickel on this one. If it's going to cost us to see if the bird's still there and the road's still in the wrong place.
Yeah,
and
there's
transformers and,
there is a lot of details. to
yeah,
work out
there's a
between
lot
us.
to consider on this one. Okay. All right, you wouldn't go to the next one now, or? Let's just go in the order that's in our packet.
This is the second one. This is the land swap at Saratoga Springs. Right now, this is a piece of property R, which is elementary school R, that we do own. It is ours. The developer would like to develop the east side of, this is County Road 315. This is Shed Road here. He would like to start developing the east side of 315, and so that he can fully develop that, he would like to swap us for a parcel on the west side of County Road 315. Same size, same value, everything. Again, this is another one that if he wants to do the swap, then he's going to pay for the survey and the environmental to prove it's clean, as well as the appraisal if required. This one, I don't have any problems with it. You know, it's basically going to be the same size piece of property, just on the opposite side of the road.
Okay.
Was it the dump?
Miss Graham, do you feel like, Miss Graham, do you feel like deja vu?
all over again.
You know, I'd like to ride out there and kind of maybe get you, Mr. Merrill, to show me. Well, I think I can figure out from this map, because it does say show where Shed Road is. Figure out where it is and see kind of how far down it is. Because Ms. Graham and I have been around the block a few times with land swaps and trades, and this is going to take some thought. Okay. But he would pay for the studies?
That would be my condition. If he wants it, he's going to foot the bill.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Are we on for the next one now?
Has everybody looked at the property and know the difference? I'm talking about in person.
No, I want to go out there in person. This is just, if he'll pay for the survey and so forth, but this will give us a chance before the next meeting to take a ride out.
Yeah, on the west side, it looks like it's been pasture land for the past 20 years. Nothing that really has been built on there looking at.
How far south of those, is it like silos out there? How far
Yeah, there are.
south of those?
Oh, a couple, you know, the silos are right across from our current property. So the silos are right in this area here. So we're south of all that dairy farm and.
And where's
all
the
that.
landfill? Or
It's down in this area here.
Closer
That's right.
to 16.
Okay. Well, it'll give us a chance to go look at it. Okay. All righty. Next, Montclair.
This is Montclair. Citizens that live behind us at Montclair would like to buy a little triangle of property, about a .15 acre, right here. This is all our land here. There's a fence that goes right across here.
Now, show me the fence.
There's a fence. You just barely see it coming right across here.
Okay, and then what about over on the other side where the white triangle is?
This is a retention.
Oh, that's retention, but what's that white behind the
It's
retention?
a sidewalk. The kids come in, the city of Orange Park owns the sidewalk coming through here.
All right, now wait, that's the sidewalk? The one that's kind of a backwards L?
Yes.
That's the sidewalk.
That's the sidewalk. Comes
So
right.
if it comes in on the property that he wants.
Right.
So what would you do with the sidewalk?
No, the sidewalk is not part of it. He would be
No.
on the left side of the sidewalk.
So the kids could still...
It's only the triangle.
So the kids would walk which way when they came in on the sidewalk to get to the school?
The sidewalk comes right across here, and
Uh-huh.
then right down along this triangle, and then across.
Oh, okay, got you. And this would just help them even out their yard,
Correct.
and it really, it's a weird shaped piece of property, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Probably should.
Is it the triangle piece that they want to purchase? Okay.
It's something, see the back of his yard, where is the rest of his lot, right there?
This is his lot right here.
And so he's got a triangle, an upside down triangle lot, and he's trying to make it, he probably just wants more in the backyard.
Or is it that he doesn't want kids on it, on
Pardon
his
me?
property?
Maybe he doesn't want kids on his property.
Well, the kids don't go back there anyways.
Okay.
There's again, a fence. All the kids continue to play up in here.
Yeah, and you told me that property, right now, the only time anybody ever goes near it is to bush hog or try to knock down
That's
some
it.
weed. It's just,
This is our property here, and this piece over here is our property as well. And all it's used for is we go back and bush hog it.
What are we selling that for? I mean...
We'd have to get an
We're
appraisal.
going to get an appraisal,
If-
okay, thank you.
So this one's an appraisal.
He's
Okay.
getting the appraisal, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
but we get the appraisal?
No, he.
He does, okay. We don't spend anything, okay.
Not if he wants it.
Okay, got you. All right. The next one, Ridgeview High School.
These two rectangular pieces of property, about 2.5 acres each. I was approached by the owner to buy those, and I said, well, don't really think so. And he said, well, how about if I give them to you? I talked to the school that it really doesn't fall within our plan or what we can do. The assistant principal came up with maybe ROTC could do an orienteering type of thing out there in the woods. But if he was going to gift them to us, then it would be on us to get an environmental, make sure we haven't got a dump out there or something that we'd have to be aware of.
So he wouldn't do the environmental study if he wants to give us the, or he agreed?
I think if he...
He agreed to?
We'd negotiate with him,
He's just wanting to he doesn't want to pay taxes on it anymore, right?
pretty much.
And it's across the street from the high school,
Right, this is the...
and
high
it goes
school.
way back. If we could just figure out what we could use it for, but it's free.
Yeah.
Right. Can't pass that up.
Okay.
Get horse in the mouth.
Now we're to Keystone. Okay.
This is the Lions Club at Keystone. This piece of property right here. I went out there with Larry Swanson and toured the property. It's a block building. It's been well kept. They have a big open area, a kitchen, restrooms. This is the one that does have a septic tank that we'd have to take a look
Yeah.
at. It's across the street from both the elementary and the high school, so it would be ideal for some kind of self-contained program that either ESE or pre-K or even a maintenance substation down there. We could possibly station a couple maintenance folks and a supervisor down there to have quicker response to Keystone. Again, before we go forward with this one, we need a good appraisal, and if it's too expensive, it's a non-issue.
And who would pay for the appraisal and stuff on this
We'd
one?
have to negotiate that with the Lions Club.
Okay.
my concern with this property, first of all, let me just tell you, the Lions Club has been a great community supporter of the schools. Unfortunately, their membership is way down, so I'm sure that's why they're trying to sell. In fact, as recently as the Summer in the City, Ms. Hingle, one of their members, garnered a lot of donations for that program, so they're really phenomenal people. My concern about the property is it doesn't touch any of our property. There's streets to cross, and even if it's a self-contained, those students still typically will go to resource, cafeteria, so they're going to have, so we're asking some of our most vulnerable kids to cross over the streets. I know when we used to have where the high school used the gym across the street before the new high school gym was there, that was a concern of mine as I watched kids cross that street, and there was during the day and no crossing guards and things like that. So I do have some concerns about that particular thing. Now, if it's used for like a substation or something like that, but as far as a classroom, and I've been in that facility multiple times, and the kitchen is well, probably people, antique dealers would probably love to have the stove and some of the things that are back there because it's a pretty old facility, but again, they have maintained it well. But that would be my concern as far as a classroom being there, because it's, again, it's not touching any of our property, so that's all. But, you know,
It would have to be for the right price.
yeah, we'd see what we get. Yeah,
Do
exactly.
they have they said what they would like to, what they'd be asking for this?
I've heard rumors, but I'd rather not say until I hear something definite.
Okay. And did you say that they would, you're going to have to negotiate them?
Negotiate that with them. They may already have an appraisal and a survey done, getting ready to sell it.
Their environmental study and checking out the septic tank system, to see what shape it's in?
Correct.
If,
I know they
Yeah.
currently use a gentleman named Ken Mitchell who does auctions and things like that in there. I don't know if they've talked with him or not about that either, but anyway, that's, I think, one of their possibilities too, so.
Yeah, and we're just authorizing me to get some information for you so we can make a.
are y'all willing to spend money on a study on the, be thinking about whether you're willing to spend money on a study or whether we would need to ask them to absorb those costs?
I know they have some money in a trust, so I think they could afford that. I have that information, so I think they probably should do the appraisals.
And this final one is the National Propane or Sawyer Gas. It's right across the street from us, quite maintenance and facilities. In this area in there, I don't really have a planned use for it. In fact, it's just by rumor that they want to sell it, so I'm not going to do anything with this one unless somebody comes forward. I tried to call the contact number and it was disconnected, but this is way low on the priority list.
Yeah.
Isn't this one that was years ago, we were told that it was contaminated, that that propane tank had leaked into the ground?
I don't know. It sounds like it's the right place, though.
Right.
And
I remember this, I believe I remember this one coming, actually, I think they both came, where there was conversation about them anyway, but I think this one, there was talk about it being contaminated because of the tank.
Yeah. There's several tanks, and they've been moving them in and out for the past month, so I'm not sure if they really want to sell it or not. But it was just presented to me. One of the guys walked across the street and said, "You want to buy our property?" So.
Okay. Now, on this one, do you want us to consider you doing anything on this, or is this just for our information?
This is just for your information now.
So we won't be voting on doing any kind of studies or anything on this piece. That's just for us to know it's there.
Since it's presented on this, the 6 items, do we have to, Mr. Bickner, when we vote, do we have to vote no on that one since he's,
Pull out the ones.
or just make the motion removing that one?
You can make your motion as to what you want to do in a positive way, an affirmative motion, and those things that you want to exclude, I would suggest you put in there as excluding.
Okay.
Okay, just to be...
Once you figure out what you want to do, I'll craft a motion for you.
Okay.
I have another question.
Okay.
Just, I guess, worst case scenario, and we ended up having to pay the cost of this to do these surveys and land studies and all of that. Is there already funds budgeted in, I think, would this come out of capital outlay? Is that where this would come from?
I think this could come out of our operating budget with professional services or Section 3 money, 2 mil money, 1.5 mil money.
So this wouldn't be anything over and above what we already have budgeted for your area, is that correct?
This would, like he said, it would probably have to come out of operating because in the $1.5 million money, it was not a part of that advertisement or a use of those funds. He would have to then justify PICO, limited there, or other capital funds that could be justified in using this, but most likely it's general fund money.
And it's not budgeted in the general fund as of this time?
It is not.
Thank you. Okay. Well, so how does everybody feel? What do you think?
I'm taking a second to kind of mark
Yeah.
mine. Let me, if y'all would, then we can kind of know what we're doing.
Well, I'm thinking that if he is pursuing any of them that are no cost to us at this time, then you're okay with that part. And then,
like especially the land swap and the Montclair, we know there's no cost. And the donated property, I personally wouldn't mind if we did have to pay something because that is certainly going to benefit us tremendously.
You're talking about the Ridgeview?
The Ridgeview property, yeah. The Keystone and the 2 Green Cove, I would have a little issue with personally.
Which ones on this sheet where it says, this sheet we have right here, which ones are the Green Coves? The ones that are titled County Office?
County Office.
Okay, so those are the Green Cove.
Okay, do you have any more questions for Mr. Merrill?
Thank you.
Okay, so as I understand, Mr. Bittner, we can form the motion to be positive, and then we can say excluding. Now, are these on the our backup, that sheet? Are they in the same order as this? That's what I wanted to see.
They're not.
They're not. Oh boy.
Elementary R is the land swap, Saratoga Springs.
All right, elementary R is the land swap.
Right. Ridgeview High School.
Okay, Ridgeview
Number
High is
4
explanatory.
Ridgeview High.
And
then
Roderico.
That's the Green Cove.
Okay, that's Green Cove. What is Amerigus parcel? That's
it's
the one with the propane. Okay.
On this here, it's number 6.
Okay. And then the Keystone, that would be the Lions Club. Okay.
And then Montclair's last.
And then Montclair is the last one.
Which one is the one that you were saying they would have to cross the street? That was the Lions Club.
That's the Lions Club.
Both sides.
You know, when you go down to the high school, and you pass the elementary school, there's a road. I don't know the name of the road. Do you know the name? Peach, okay. And then there's this building on the left. I went to something there one time, but it's too bad it's not
Attached to the property.
But
we didn't have the roads between. That'd be different.
Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion if anyone is ready to frame a motion.
Well,
Mr. Bittner, did you want to say something else?
What I've heard, just sort of listening to your discussion, is that the majority of you do not have any interest in the Center Street AmeriGas property, that you don't have any interest in the Roderico Road property with the bird nest and all of that, or is that, am I correct?
I really think that...
Sounds like it's got a lot of issues.
I don't think
the question. Who would be interested in that piece of property and spending money on it? Is anybody...
Well, I thought maybe we weren't spending money on it yet till we knew
a
little more about
even
it.
though we wouldn't be spending money, if the city of Green Cove was spending money, it's still their tax dollars, you know.
They were spending it
I don't want to build up
anyway.
false hope.
All right.
You know,
Someone else came along. So unless someone else, you know, if they have to spend at some point in time to see if anybody else, whether it's us or another entity that would be interested in it. That would be up to them.
Other than the Center Street AmeriGas property, was there any of the other 5 that you were just not interested in pursuing at all? No?
Well, as long as
As long as
we're not paying for environmental studies and surveys and so forth, if they will bear the cost, I would be willing to, have Mr. Merrill bring back information on the others. Not that I would support them even then, except, gifts are hard to turn down.
The way that I'm thinking is exactly what you just said, with the exception of the donated one. I'd be willing, the land that they're going to donate, I'd be willing to look at the cost of what it would cost to do the survey and
Right.
so forth.
Yeah.
But all the other ones, if we could,
Well, he
we
said
could
the
have
gentleman
them-
he thought was
yeah.
going to pay
Sure.
those costs.
Okay.
So, isn't that what you said, Mr. Merrill? I don't want to put words in
he
your
said
mouth.
that we would-
I thought that's what you told me.
For the donated property.
For the donated property?
Across from Ridgeview High School.
Right, I think, again, everything's negotiated, but I think we would probably have to bear the cost of that.
We would have to bear the cost.
Of the donated property, I think that's absolutely true.
So can you craft a motion that says that we would agree to pay the survey, appraisal, and environmental study on the Ridgeview High School property, and that we would agree to do the survey, appraisal, and environmental study on the other 4 at the expense of
the other
parties, and we would exclude
The two.
the AmeriGas.
The Osprey and the transformer.
You want to exclude both? Both the green code?
propane gas and the
Bird's Nest.
birds.
No, my understanding was.
Osprey, they
I thought it was
said.
just the one. I thought we were just excluding.
Just the one.
Which one did you want to just exclude? The
The
propane?
AmeriGas one, yeah.
Oh, you still want to get something done on the
They're going
Ospreys?
to pay for it. I mean,
Well, whatever y'all want to do is fine,
All right. Your motion then would be to approve obtaining appraisals, a survey, and environmental studies of all 5 properties with the proviso that we be allowed to negotiate that the current owners pay for those things on all 4 properties, and the 5th one being the Ridgeview High School, we would pay for.
I'll move approval.
Wait, you didn't exclude the other one. Do you need to exclude it?
And exclude.
He did.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry, I missed that then.
I'll second.
All right.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. McKinnon, second by Ms. Graham. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Hey, that worked well. Okay. Next, presentations from the audience. How about this? We're getting Liz Crane.
Liz Crane, you have my address for the record. I was going to talk about bullying tonight, however, some misinformation was given and I must correct it. Just to clarify, the union hat is on tonight. I would like to correct something that was stated earlier tonight about teacher prep time. It was stated earlier, and again I'm paraphrasing because I was a little upset when I did hear it, that teachers are complaining that they do not have enough prep time from the state. Our prep time is a contractual right. It is not provided to teachers by the state of Florida. The CCA fought over many years to get language to increase our prep and planning time and to have it daily. You might not be aware of this, but less than 10 years ago, elementary teachers did not have guaranteed prep time. It was whenever possible. We would have prep time. Whenever possible. Some days you had it, some days you didn't. Each year our prep time is under attack when we're at the table. The reason why teachers are complaining that they do not have enough prep time is because the additional mandates that are being placed to us by the state and the district. Let's name some. Cafeteria duty, golf cart, parking lot duty, sweep duty, conferences, IEP meetings, data meetings, PLCs, student data meetings, student data analysis, student data entering, MTSS data entry, MTSS data analysis, follow-up activities for professional development, and the list goes on and on. Contractually, I receive 30 minutes each day. There are days that I'm not even able to use the ladies' room during my prep time because I'm needed elsewhere. Let there be no mistake. Our prep time is not granted by the state, but was won at the bargaining table, and it is a contractual right. Thank you.
Okay. The next speaker, Keith Nichols.
Yes, ma'am. Keith Nichols, and my address is still on the card. Today I had an IAP for Alex, and you all know the problems that we've had with Alex over the last, so I just kind of wanted to give you all an update and an idea of what goes on in the household of a special needs family. I was talking to Mr. Warnberg earlier, and just to explain, Alex was diagnosed with autism when he was about 6 years old. At the time, the diagnostics manual gave 12 levels to autism, and he was rated at 11. Since that time, he's been in the Clay County School District and going through the special ed programs.
Madam Chair, are we discussing the medical needs of a student by name on TV?
He is my child, sir.
Oh, excuse me, I thought that was one of your students. Okay, got it.
No, sir. We had received an email from him. He has an autistic son, and he has emailed us, and he is wanting to explain it now.
Anyway, he was diagnosed when he was 6 years old. From that time, he's been in the Clay County School District, starting out at Lighthouse, working in a Tynes, going over to Thunderbolt for a while. Now he's in Ridgeview. He went through Lakeside Elementary, or excuse me, Lakeside Junior High, and now he's in Ridgeview. During that whole time, one of the things that we found out as parents of a special needs child is one of the problems that you have is that there's programs that you don't know about and nobody can really tell you. You kind of have to, you're on your own and you have to find them. And we came across some of them and found out that, you know, we made too much money to get assistance for the programs but didn't make enough money to pay for them outright. So you kind of had a situation where, you know, you either had to sacrifice the rest of your family or let your special needs child suffer. And I don't want to use the word suffer too hard on that because he was in Clay County and we do have one of the best special needs programs in the state. Just to let you know where I'm going with this, today when we had our IAP and his teacher, and I'm going to call her out by name because she is really just the greatest thing in the world. Her name is Christina Smith. Miss Smith is going for a master's degree, and one of the things that she did to go for her master's degree was she developed a website that has a list of all these different programs and has a lot of resources for parents. I would like for somebody to contact Miss Smith. I was going to bring it tonight, but I forgot to get it up. Contact Miss Smith and get that website and get that put onto our website, onto the district website, because it is a fantastic resource. And Miss Smith is actually, she's more like family than she is a teacher. During the IAP today, they are putting the door back on for him, and we had some other issues with him that have got resolved, and I just want to basically say thank you to Miss Smith because she is a wonderful teacher and she's a wonderful example of what we have in special education. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure that she will appreciate that compliment. They work very hard. We had one last card, Amber Shepard.
A few months ago during the primary election candidacy, I received a notice that had your picture, Madam Chair, indicating that you were publicly endorsing Ms. Bullock, Ms. Karakis, and Ms. Donovan. And I was curious if that endorsement had changed at all due to the fact of the lawsuit that's surrounding Ms. Donovan at this time. I think it's relevant for citizens to know where our board chair stands. And I received some information about that situation saying that these lawsuits have come up because she fabricated and altered responses, lied under oath, and submitted forged documents. So I'm curious if you're still publicly endorsing her, and also Ms. Karakis, who's continuing to run. Okay, well, obviously you're not going to answer me, but I'll take that silence as consent and assent that yes, you are. And my mom always taught me when I was growing up that birds of a feather flock together. Thank you.
Okay. Let me bring it back to this harmonious school board. Superintendent's request.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it is National School Lunch Week. I had a great lunch with a 5th grade class at Coppergate today. Had some nachos. It was very good. Miss Rita Holden out there has got it going on. I attended just to kind of give a shout out to our school food service people. In general, it is one of the most solvent programs probably in the state. Miss Susie Glover under Dr. Copeland's direction just does a phenomenal job. And if you didn't know, we serve about 20,000 meals in Clay County every day. And those kids were happy and smiling. It was some good chow. So there you go.
Okay. Now, you know, I always forget Mr. Bittner. I'm going to give him an opportunity before I come to the board. Mr. Bittner, have you got any comments?
No.
See, he can't say I didn't ask him, though. Okay. School board, I'll start. Ms. Graham, why don't you start tonight? I always start with poor Ms. McKinnon. She always has to lead off. I'll let you lead off tonight.
I'm just glad that you all got to go and work in the schools, and you saw what I did every day, whether it was
For how
usually
many
the bus
years?
I had to ride was not the good bus. Yeah. Yeah, and it is such a real blessing to work with the kids, even if you're a teacher, you're a para, you know, cafeteria worker, bus driver, whatever it is in the support world. You know, they always do a fabulous job, and they try very hard, and they give, you know, usually 110%. And so I know that you had a really great time when you were there.
Yeah. Okay, Ms. McKinnon.
Just a couple things. First of all, I would just like to comment to the vice president of CESPA. With regards to that challenge, I do regret that I was not able to do that. It wasn't just because of my work schedule. I do have had some other personal challenges going on the past several weeks that I've been primarily dealing with, so I was not able to do that. I still intend to do that, and I hope that the invitation is open. So.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I would just like to say to my fellow board members, I want to thank Mrs. Graham and thank Mrs. Bullock for their service on the board. And I know that this is both of their last meetings. And, you know, as a new school board member, I can't even put into words the service and of the years that Ms. Graham has put on this board. And I know she's going to surely be missed. And I just want to personally thank you. And Ms. Bullock, I want to thank you, too, for the 2 years that you've put in on the board. Yep. And that's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Bullock, I'm going to save you to last. Ms. Karakas?
Okay, let me think. Well, I also would like to just thank Mrs. Graham. You've done 24 years. You've done a
Don't
lot.
you take my speech.
I won't. I'm just going to say, I'm going to say ditto to what Mrs. Studdard says. You know, I've gotten to know you over the years. Probably first met you back in 2004 or 5 when I started coming to meetings. And, you know, each of us brings something different, and you've brought the administrator and the teacher experience, and that's just been great. And I wish you all the best. I know you're going to enjoy retirement and your grandkids and have a wonderful time. Mrs. Bullock, like I said, you know, each of us brings something different. Mrs. Graham, the administrator, Mrs. Studdard brings, you know, small business owner, community advocate. Ms. McKinnon, I'm not trying to insult you, but I'm not really sure what your job is. I know you work for GE's, but I'm going to say corporate America.
Thank you.
We all bring something different. You know, the parent volunteer, you know, advocate for children with all the boards that I sit on. But Mrs. Bullock, you definitely were a tremendous help these last 2 years. You brought experience as a volunteer, as a parent, as a teacher and an administrator, and I'm just so impressed with how quickly you got up to speed, going and getting your training, always prepared, always to lend that extra hand. I know, you know, we were recognized tonight for doing our challenge, and that's just one example of everything that Mrs. Bullock has not missed a thing in the last 2 years. She has attended everything she's been invited to. I'm looking at Ms. Schofield, I'm thinking the robotics competition. She's been to every Tropicana speech competition, every spelling bee awards. She's judged Tropicana speech, science fair, battle of the books. She was reading in Miss Crane's class this week. You name it, she does it. And I still would like to know how many miles you put on your car. But you have just been a true inspiration to all of us board members as to what we need to aspire to. And it's been a pleasure to get to know you and to work with you, and I truly wish you all the best.
Okay, Ms. Bullock. Listen, by the time it gets to me, I'm probably not going to have much to say. Y'all can just say it all.
Well, first I want to thank Liz Crane's class. We had a great time. Those kindergartners were just they're phenomenal. I tell you, I wish I could get a group of people to behave like they did, but you did a great job, and we had a great time in class. I did get to go tour the culinary arts class, and at Keystone, it's phenomenal. And on Thursday, if you're hungry, they have Keystone Cafe is open. $5, whatever the menu is, and I encourage you to go. Ms. P does a great job in that program. And tomorrow is Keystone's homecoming, and hopefully they will win tomorrow night. So thank you. Yay.
You gonna talk about ball games?
No, I'm not. Go away.
Hey, I can't say much. I tell you, it's looking pretty sad for all of us this year. Okay. I've been thinking about this for the last few days. I was thinking about, I'm going to talk about Ms. Graham first, and I got to tell y'all this, you'll enjoy this. I said, Lisa, why do you have on dark glasses tonight? And she said, well, my future is so rosy that I have to wear dark glasses. Right. So bright. Her future is so bright that she is going to have to wear dark glasses. Truth of the matter is, the eye doctor says wear those tonight. But Lisa was elected to the school board in 1990, 2 years before I arrived, and she and Carol Valancourt served their first 2 years with Superintendent Ann Wiggins. Then we had Phyllis May, and then we had David Owens, then we had Ben Wortham, and now Charlie Van Zant. So you've worked with 5 different superintendents and worked closely with each of them. I think we probably had about 19 or 20 schools when you were elected. That sounds like a number that I researched a couple years ago. So we have more than doubled the number of schools in the years that you have served, and we have doubled our student population. We have probably collected more hard hats. You probably have an abundance of shovels. We've learned to throw dirt in all the weird places when we'd go out to the property and then to see it being built and opened up. I remember when we had the ceremony for Mr. Tynes. We named the school for him, and he was very fragile at that point, but he lived to see the opening of that school, and they buried the capsule that day. Timed capsule. But I mean, I was just thinking back over the years of all the crazy stuff, the different things that have happened, and remember the night we were meeting and we met in the BCC room, and it was when I believe it was when we were approving prime time for the YMCA, and we had dozens of speakers. And I remember one speaker came to us and he had on the Indian headdress. We called him Chief Big Hal, But, I mean, there's just a lot of memories that have transpired over these last 2 years that I've worked with you. And you have seen some very interesting board meetings when we were redistricting. Those were the most fun, right? It was just the pits.
Sad because people don't want.
But we've got a lot of memories, and I know Ms. Valancourt sometimes will say, I remember when, you and Lisa and I did this or that or the other, and it was fun, and I'm going to always treasure those memories, and your experience is going to be missed here. You've got 24 years of knowledge of this school system in your head, and it will be missed, Ms. Graham. And you have been a good board member. And Ms. Bullock, now it's your turn. This is your life. I did not know Mrs. Bullock until she got elected to the school board. I mean, I knew her by sight, but I don't think we'd ever even had a conversation. And so when she was elected and we started going to the school board conferences and master board, and I found out real quick, she is a funny lady. has the best sense of humor of anyone I think I've ever known, and also I can unequivocally say she's got the biggest heart of anybody I have ever met in my life. When when you get down, sometimes you need a friend, and she's been a friend, not just a fellow board member, and she's had some trying times, and I've tried to be as good a friend to her, to stand by her through some heartbreaking times. But I'll call her to cheer her up, and I'm down, and she's always up. I said, don't you ever just have a bad day? But this woman, in the 2 years, I have grown to love her. I respect her. I'm going to miss her like crazy, and I'm still going to be her friend, and I'm still going to sneak off down to Keystone and go to Johnny's and have some barbecue. But, it's like Ms. Carrick has said, whether it's reading to the kids or sitting on the insurance committee or whatever, she has been there and never complained. When I would ask her to do something she really didn't want to do, she'd just do it. I mean, she's just that kind of person. I have never known a more giving, devoted, big-hearted person, and I am proud to be your friend, Ms. Bullock. We're going to miss you. Okay. If there's no other business to come before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Ready.